Welcome back, family. I'm so excited about today's story. I have a feeling you'll love it just as much as I do. So make sure you stay with me till the end. To my incredible subscribers, thank you for making this channel a place where romance meets real-life lessons. Your support means everything. And if you're new here, I'm your host, Mr. Ashbourne. Go ahead and click that subscribe button to join a family of story lovers who believe in love, redemption, and second chances. Now tell me, do you believe people can truly change? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts about second chances in love. Now, let's dive in. The steak was medium rare. The wine, a limited edition Bordeaux that cost more than most people's monthly salary. The restaurant? La Maison du Verre, exclusive enough to require a 2-week screening before a reservation could even be considered. And yet Caleb Holt hadn't tasted a single bite. He sat beneath the chandelier lighting, one hand scrolling through a board acquisition contract on his tablet, the other absently turning the stem of his wine glass. To the rest of the world he looked like the embodiment of controlled power, a 41-year-old tech magnate with more money than time, eating alone by choice, not by consequence. His phone buzzed. Another merger proposal. Another opportunity to expand his empire. But behind that composed stare was a man too disciplined for regrets and too broken to admit he had any. The whisper started first. Nervous murmurs from the staff. Then the maitre d's voice, strained and apologetic. "Sir, excuse me, young man, you can't?" A small figure ducked around the suited man with practiced ease. Caleb looked up from his tablet, irritation flickering across his features. But the words died in his throat. A little boy stood at his table. Maybe 5 years old. Curly hair that fell slightly over his forehead. Worn jeans and a red hoodie with a small rip near the collar. His small hand gripped a toy car tightly, knuckles white with determination. The child didn't speak. Just stood there, studying Caleb with an intensity that made the powerful CEO shift uncomfortably in his seat. "Are you lost?" Caleb asked, his voice quieter than usual. The boy tilted his head, examining Caleb the same way Caleb once studied hostile investors. Carefully, silently, searching for something. And then the boy turned his head slightly. Caleb's blood froze. Behind the child's left ear, barely visible beneath the curls, was a crescent-shaped birthmark. Small, distinctive, unmistakable. The same birthmark Caleb had carried his entire life. A hereditary skin pigment anomaly so rare that doctors had told him it appeared in less than 1% of the population. The tablet slipped from his fingers, clattering against the marble table. "Leo." The voice cut through the air like a blade. Caleb's head snapped up, and the world tilted off its axis. "Isla Monroe." She rushed toward them, her heels clicking against the polished floor. She looked older, sharper, but not colder. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a professional bun, and she wore a navy dress that spoke of success and independence. She hadn't seen him yet. Her focus was entirely on the boy. "Baby, I told you to wait by the hostess stand," she said, crouching to eye level with the child. "He was here," Leo said, pointing directly at Caleb. Isla's head turned slowly. Their eyes met across the space between them. The silence stretched like a wire drawn tight between two cliffs, ready to snap. "Caleb," she breathed, and her voice carried every emotion she'd buried for years. He stood slowly, every movement deliberate and measured. His hands were steady. His pulse was not. Isla. Her name felt foreign on his tongue after so long. She rose to her feet, instinctively pulling Leo closer to her side. "We should go." "No." The word came out sharper than he intended. "I need to speak with you. Now's not a good time." "Is he mine?" The question cut through the elegant restaurant like shattered glass. Conversations at nearby tables faltered. The very air seemed to hold its breath. Isla's face went pale. "Caleb." "The birthmark," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Behind his ear. I have the same one." Leo looked between them, confusion clouding his young features. "Mommy? Who is he?" Isla's hands trembled as she smoothed Leo's hair. "I'll explain later, sweetheart." But Caleb couldn't look away from the boy. Couldn't unsee the birthmark. Couldn't ignore the timeline that was crystallizing in his mind with brutal clarity. "You left without a word," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You disappeared from my life, from the company, from everything. That was 5 years and 8 months ago," Isla finished quietly. Leo tugged at his mother's dress. "Mommy, I'm hungry." "I know, baby. We'll get our table in just a minute." Caleb's world was crumbling around him, but he forced himself to focus on the child. His son. The word felt impossible and inevitable at the same time. What's your favorite dinosaur? Caleb asked suddenly. Leo's eyes lit up. Triceratops. They have 3 horns and they're really strong. They're herbivores, Caleb said automatically. Plant eaters. You know dinosaurs? Leo asked, stepping closer despite Isla's gentle attempt to keep him back. I used to. When I was your age. Leo, come on, Isla said, her voice strained. Our table is ready. But Leo was already extending his toy car toward Caleb. This is my favorite. It's red like fire trucks. Caleb took the small car with hands that shook imperceptibly. It's beautiful. You can hold it while we eat, Leo said with the generous heart of a child who hadn't yet learned that the world could be cruel. Leo, no, Isla said firmly. We need to go. She took Leo's hand, but Caleb stood. Please, he said, and the word came out broken. Just, give me 5 minutes. After dinner. Please. Isla stared at him for a long moment, seeing something in his eyes that made her defenses waver. The parking garage, she said finally. Level B2. After we're done. She turned to leave, but Caleb called after her. Isla. She paused without turning around. Thank you. For him. For everything. Her shoulders tensed, but she didn't respond. She simply walked away, leading their son toward a table across the restaurant. Caleb sank back into his chair, the toy car still clutched in his palm. His untouched steak had gone cold. His wine sat forgotten. For the first time in his adult life, Caleb Holt had no idea what came next. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Everything had just changed. What would you do if you discovered you had a child you never knew existed? The comments below are for you to share your thoughts about unexpected fatherhood and second chances. The parking garage felt like a tomb. Concrete walls echoed every footstep, every breath, every unspoken word hanging between them. Caleb stood beside his matte black Aston Martin, still clutching Leo's toy car. He'd been waiting for 20 minutes, his mind racing through every possible conversation, every question, every apology he'd rehearsed and discarded. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding. Isla walked out carrying Leo, his small head resting against her shoulder. The boy's eyes were heavy with sleep, one arm wrapped around his mother's neck, the other dangling loosely at his side. I'm not running, she said before Caleb could speak. Good, he replied, his voice steadier than he felt. Because I have questions. Leo's weight, and Caleb noticed the practiced ease of the movement. 5 years of being the only parent. 5 years of bedtimes and breakfast, scraped knees and story time, all without him. Why didn't you tell me? The words came out rougher than he intended. Isla's expression hardened. Because the last time I offered you something real, Caleb, you said time was a luxury you couldn't afford. So I stopped offering. The memory hit him like a physical blow. Her face across his office desk, hope shining in her eyes as she talked about wanting more than late nights and conference calls. How he dismissed her dreams as distractions. I wasn't going to beg you to be someone you weren't, she continued, brushing Leo's hair back with gentle fingers. I didn't know. You didn't ask. Her voice carried years of buried hurt. You made your choice. I made mine. Leo stirred in her arms, mumbling something about dinosaurs before settling back into sleep. He's beautiful, Caleb whispered. He's everything. Isla's voice softened as she looked at their son. Smart, funny, curious about everything. He builds these elaborate cities with his blocks and makes up stories about the people who live there. Does he ask about me? Isla was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes. I tell him his daddy lives far away but thinks about him every day. But I didn't know. I know. She met his eyes. But he doesn't need to know that. Not yet. The next morning, Caleb stood outside Isla's apartment building, coffee growing cold in his hands. He'd driven past 3 times before finally parking, rehearsing words that felt inadequate for the magnitude of what he'd discovered. The building wasn't what he'd expected. Modest, well-maintained, with a small playground visible through the courtyard where children's laughter echoed off brick walls. He knocked. Isla opened the door wearing jeans and a soft sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked younger like this, more like the woman he'd once known. Leo's at school, she said, stepping aside to let him in. I'm not here for him. She raised an eyebrow. You're here for? You. The apartment was small but warm. Sunlight streamed through windows that overlooked the courtyard. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. Toys were scattered across the living room floor in the organized chaos of a home where a child was loved. Isla gestured to the couch. Coffee? Please. She moved through the kitchen with efficient grace, and Caleb found himself watching her hands as she prepared the coffee. The same hands that had once sketched product designs in his conference room, that had touched his face with such tenderness he'd almost believed he could be worthy of it. "You want the truth?" she asked, not turning around. "Yes." She brought 2 mugs to the living room, setting one in front of him before settling into the chair across from him. Not the couch. The distance was deliberate. "I loved you," she said simply. "Back then. I thought maybe, just maybe, you'd love me back. Not with flowers or poetry, but with time. With presence. With choice." Her voice cracked slightly. "But when I told you I wanted a life, not just a ladder to climb, you shut down. You made me feel small for dreaming bigger than deadlines." Caleb's hands tightened around his mug. "Isla. I'm not done." She held up a hand. "I found out I was pregnant 3 weeks after you ended things. 3 weeks after you told me that emotional attachments were liabilities you couldn't afford." The words hit him like physical blows. He remembered that conversation, remembered the clinical way he dismissed what they had as complicated and unprofessional. "I wanted to tell you," she continued. "I stood outside your office for an hour rehearsing how to say it. But I couldn't stop thinking about what you'd said. About how you saw emotion as weakness and love as distraction." Tears threatened at the corners of her eyes. "I didn't want Leo to feel like a burden. I didn't want you resenting him the way you resented anything that slowed you down." Caleb stood abruptly, walking to the window. The view showed the playground where children ran and played, their joy uncomplicated by the weight of adult mistakes. "You were right," he said, his voice thick. "What?" "You were right about me. About everything." He turned to face her. "I was so afraid of needing anyone, of being vulnerable, that I pushed away the only person who ever made me feel human. Caleb. I built an empire, Isla. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I have power that moves markets and influences industries. And I eat dinner alone in restaurants that cost more than most people's cars because I convinced myself that was success." He sat back down, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "But you know what I realized when I saw him yesterday? When I saw our son looking at me with your eyes and my birthmark?" She waited. "I realized I've been living like a dead man. Going through the motions of what I thought life should look like while missing everything that actually mattered." "And what's that?" "This." He gestured around the apartment. "The drawings on the fridge. The toys on the floor. The way you light up when you talk about him. The way he gets excited about dinosaurs. That's life, Isla. That's what I was too stupid to see." Isla wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "You can't just show up now and expect." "I'm not expecting anything," he interrupted. "I'm asking for the chance to earn it. To earn the right to be his father. To earn the right to be worthy of what you offered me once. And if I say no, then I'll respect that. But I'll also keep trying. Because that little boy deserves to know his father wants him. And you." He swallowed hard. "You deserved better than the man I was. Maybe I can't change the past, but I can change who I am moving forward." The silence stretched between them, filled with 5 years of hurt and hope, of dreams deferred and second chances that felt too fragile to trust. Finally Isla spoke. "He comes home from school at 3:30. You can meet him properly then." "But Caleb?" "Yes. One disappointment. One broken promise. One sign that you're the same man who chose his empire over everything else and you're gone. I won't let you break his heart the way you broke mine." The weight of that responsibility settled on his shoulders like a mantle. "I understand. Do you? Because being a parent isn't a project you can manage or a problem you can solve. It's showing up every day, even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when it costs you everything else." "I know. We'll see. How far would you go to prove you've changed? Love sometimes requires us to sacrifice everything we thought we wanted for what we actually need." At 3:25 p.m., Caleb sat in his car outside Leo's school, his hands gripping the steering wheel like a lifeline. He'd canceled 3 board meetings and rescheduled a merger negotiation that his CFO had called career suicide. None of that mattered now. Through the windshield, he watched children pour out of the red brick building, their voices creating a symphony of innocent chaos. Backpacks bounced, sneakers squeaked against pavement, and parents called out names with the practiced ease of routine. Then he saw him. Leo emerged from the building, his red hoodie bright against the afternoon sun. He moved with the unhurried confidence of a child who knew exactly where he was going and who would be waiting, his expensive suit feeling ridiculous among the casual clothes of other parents. "Leo." The boy turned and his face lit up with recognition. "Carman. You came back." "Carman?" Caleb repeated, confused. You held my car yesterday, Leo explained, running toward him. Mommy said you might come to school pickup. Isla appeared moments later, slightly out of breath. Sorry, he saw you and took off running. It's okay. Caleb crouched down to Leo's level. How was school today? We learned about penguins. Did you know they can swim really, really fast but they can't fly? I did know that. Did you know emperor penguins are the only animals that can survive Antarctic winters? Leo's eyes widened. Really? How? They huddle together in groups of thousands, taking turns moving to the center where it's warmer. That's so cool. Are you really smart? Caleb glanced at Isla, who was watching their interaction with guarded curiosity. I know some things. But I bet you know things I don't. Like what? Like, what's the best way to make friends? Leo considered this seriously. You share your snacks. And you say sorry when you're mean. And you always help if someone falls down. That's very wise advice. Mommy taught me that. The next few weeks became a careful dance of small moments and tentative trust. Caleb started showing up everywhere. School pickup. Grocery store trips. The playground where Leo conquered monkey bars with determined concentration. You don't have to come to everything, Isla said one afternoon as they watched Leo feed ducks at the pond. I want to. Caleb tossed a piece of bread into the water. I missed 5 years. I don't want to miss another day. But your company is fine without me for a few hours. He looked at her. I've been doing this wrong for so long, Isla. I built a life around avoiding exactly this. This? Caring about someone more than myself. Being needed. Being responsible for someone else's happiness. Leo ran back to them, his shoes squelching with pond water. Did you see how many ducks came? I counted 12. That's a lot of ducks, Caleb agreed. Are you hungry? We could get ice cream. Can we, Mommy? Please? Isla hesitated, then nodded. 1 scoop. 2 scoops, Caleb countered with a smile. Deal? Leo cheered, grabbing both their hands. As they walked toward the ice cream truck, Caleb felt something he hadn't experienced in years: contentment. Not the sharp satisfaction of closing a deal or the adrenaline rush of competition. Just peace. The transformation wasn't always smooth. One evening, Caleb's phone rang during bedtime stories. Without thinking, he answered. Caleb Holt. Sir, we need your approval on the Singapore expansion. Dad. Leo's small voice cut through the business jargon. You said you'd finished the dragon story. Caleb looked at his son, then at Isla standing in the doorway with disappointment written across her face. I have to go, he said into the phone and hung up. But sir. Caleb turned off his phone entirely. Where were we? The dragon was guarding the castle. Later, after Leo had fallen asleep, Isla found Caleb on the couch, his head in his hands. That was a test, wasn't it? He asked without looking up. No, it was life. She sat beside him. This is what I meant about showing up. Every day. Even when work is calling. I turned off my phone. This time. But what about next time? What happens when the board calls an emergency meeting during his soccer game? When he has a fever and you have a presentation? Caleb lifted his head. Then I choose him. Every time. It's not that simple. It is. His voice carried a conviction that surprised them both. I spent years believing that success meant being indispensable. But I was wrong. Success means being present for the people who need you most. The pivotal moment came 3 weeks later. Caleb sat in his office, facing 12 board members whose expressions ranged from concerned to hostile. The quarterly reports were spread across the mahogany table like evidence in a trial. Your absence has been noted, Chairman Morrison said coldly. 3 missed board meetings. Delayed responses to critical decisions. This isn't the leadership we've come to expect from you, Caleb. I understand your concerns. Do you? Because our shareholders are asking questions. Your personal life cannot interfere with your professional responsibilities. Caleb stood slowly, walking to the window that overlooked the city he'd helped build. 41 floors below, people moved through their lives like ants, each carrying their own dreams and disappointments. I have something to tell you, he said, turning back to the room. I have a son. The silence was deafening. 5 years old. His name is Leo and he likes dinosaurs and red cars and stories about dragons. He's brilliant and kind and he thinks the world is full of magic. Caleb, Morrison warned, personal matters are the only matters that actually matter. Caleb's voice was calm but firm. I've spent 20 years building this company. I've sacrificed relationships, health, happiness, everything that makes life worth living. And for what? So I could die rich and alone? The company needs leadership. The company needs someone who understands that success isn't just about profit margins and market share. It's about building something meaningful. Something that makes the world better for our children. He straightened his tie, a gesture that had once been about power but now felt like armor. I'm restructuring my role. I'll remain as CEO, but I'm delegating day-to-day operations. I'll be present for the decisions that matter, but I won't be a slave to every crisis that someone else can handle. That's not how we do business here, Morrison said. Then maybe it's time we learned a new way. The room erupted in protests, but Caleb was already gathering his things. Meeting adjourned, he said. I have a school play to attend. That evening, Caleb sat in a tiny plastic chair in Leo's school auditorium, watching his son play a tree in the kindergarten production of The Giving Tree. Leo's branches swayed with dramatic flair, and his leaves rustled with each movement. When the boy taking the apples tripped, Leo broke character to help him up, just like he'd learned from his mother. That's my boy, Caleb whispered, his voice thick with pride. Isla squeezed his hand. He's been practicing for weeks. I almost missed this. But you didn't. After the play, Leo ran to them, his paper bark costume rustling with excitement. Did you see me? I was the best tree. You were magnificent, Caleb said, lifting him up. I'm so proud of you. Will you come to my next play too? I wouldn't miss it for the world. As they walked to the parking lot, Leo between them, Caleb realized something profound had shifted. For the first time in his adult life, he wasn't planning tomorrow's meetings or calculating profit margins. He was simply walking with his family, carrying his son's paper costume, and thinking about bedtime stories. What does it mean to truly succeed in life? Sometimes the biggest victories happen in the smallest moments. The call came at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Caleb was in Isla's kitchen, making pancakes shaped like dinosaurs while Leo sat at the counter, narrating an elaborate story about a triceratops who saved a village from a meteor. And then the triceratops used his super strong horns to push the meteor into space. Leo declared, waving his fork. Caleb said, flipping a pancake that looked vaguely like a stegosaurus. Heroes protect the people they love. His phone buzzed against the counter. Morrison's name flashed on the screen. Don't answer it, Isla said quietly from the doorway. She was dressed for work, her hair pulled back, but her eyes were soft as she watched him cook for their son. I have to. No, you don't. But Caleb was already swiping to answer. Morrison. Emergency board meeting. 1 hour. The Singapore deal is falling apart, and the investors are threatening to pull out. We need you here now. Leo looked up from his pancake, syrup dripping from his chin. Daddy, you said we could go to the zoo today. Caleb's heart clenched. I know, buddy. The company is hemorrhaging money by the hour, Morrison continued. Whatever personal crisis you're having needs to take a back seat to business. Personal crisis? Caleb's voice went dangerously quiet. Your midlife meltdown or whatever this is. Playing house with some woman and her kid. It's affecting your judgment. The kitchen went silent except for the sizzle of pancakes on the griddle. Some woman? Caleb repeated. Daddy? Leo's voice was small, confused. Are you mad? Caleb looked at his son, then at Isla, who was watching him with the careful expression of someone bracing for disappointment. Morrison, he said into the phone, his voice calm. I quit. What? I quit. Effective immediately. I'm done. You can't be serious. You built this company. And now I'm choosing something more important. He hung up and turned off his phone. The silence stretched like a held breath. What did you just do? Isla whispered. I chose you, Caleb said simply. Both of you. I chose this. Leo slid off his stool and wrapped his arms around Caleb's waist. Does this mean we can still go to the zoo? Yes, buddy. We can go to the zoo. Forever and ever? Forever and ever. But forever felt more fragile than Caleb had expected. The next few days brought an avalanche of consequences. Legal teams, severance negotiations, board members trying to convince him he was making the biggest mistake of his life. You'll regret this, Morrison warned during their final meeting. You're giving up everything you've worked for. No, Caleb said, signing the papers that would sever his ties to the company he'd built from nothing. I'm finally getting everything I've worked for. That evening he sat on Isla's porch steps, watching Leo chase fireflies in the small front yard. The boys' laughter echoed off the surrounding apartments, pure and unself-conscious. You gave it all up, Isla said, settling beside him. Your life's work. Your fortune. Your identity. My fortune is still intact, Caleb said with a wry smile. Stock options and investments. We won't be poor. That's not what I meant. I know. He was quiet for a moment. Do you remember what you said to me that last day at the office? Before you left. Isla nodded. I said you were so afraid of needing anyone that you'd end up with nothing worth having. You were right. I had everything I thought I wanted and nothing I actually needed. And now? Now I have a son who thinks I'm a hero for making dinosaur pancakes. I have a woman who's given me a second chance I don't deserve. I have bedtime stories and scraped knees and Saturday morning cartoons. He turned to look at her. I have a life, Isla. A real life. The board voted you out anyway, she said gently. I heard it on the news. I know. Unanimous decision. They couldn't risk having a CEO who prioritized family over profit margins. Does that hurt? Less than I thought it would. More than I expected. He watched Leo successfully catch a firefly, his small hands cupped carefully around the glowing insect. But watching him discover the world? That heals everything. Leo ran over to them, his face flushed with excitement. Look, I caught one. He opened his hands slightly, and the firefly blinked once before flying away into the twilight. It's beautiful, Caleb said. Just like you. Daddy, will you read me a story tonight? Of course. The one about the dragon again? Any story you want. Leo threw his arms around Caleb's neck. I love you, Daddy. The words hit Caleb like a physical force. In all his years of negotiations and acquisitions, he'd never heard anything more valuable. I love you too, buddy. More than all the stars in the sky. After Leo went to bed, Caleb and Isla remained on the porch. The night was warm, filled with the sounds of suburban life. Distant televisions, cars passing, the soft murmur of neighbors talking on their own porches. Can I tell you something? Isla said. Anything. When I left, I was terrified. Pregnant, alone, in love with a man who couldn't love me back. I thought I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. But you didn't. No. I made the best decision I could with the information I had. I protected Leo from a father who wasn't ready to be one. I protected myself from heartbreak I couldn't afford. And now? She turned to face him, her eyes reflecting the porch light. Now I see a man who walked away from $1 billion empire to help his son catch fireflies. A man who makes pancakes shaped like dinosaurs and shows up to every school event and puts his phone away during bedtime stories. You see the man I should have been all along. I see the man you chose to become. The distinction felt important, like the difference between regret and redemption. Isla, he said, his voice uncertain. You didn't fall in love with me when we met. She smiled, recognizing the words from their first conversation. No. But I'm falling now. And this time I don't need promises. I need you to keep choosing us. Every day, he said. Every choice. Every moment. Even when it's hard? Especially when it's hard. She leaned against him, and for the first time in 6 years, Caleb felt complete. So what happens now? She asked. Now I learn to be the father Leo deserves. The partner you deserve. The man I never knew I could be. And the company? Will survive without me. But I wouldn't survive without this. Without you. Without him. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fireflies dance in the darkness, each tiny light a reminder that some of the most beautiful things in life are fragile and fleeting and worth protecting. Caleb? Yeah. Welcome home. The words settled over him like a blessing, like absolution, like the answer to a prayer he'd never known he was praying. Home. Not a place but a choice. Not a destination but a daily commitment to love more than you fear, to choose presence over profit, to believe that some things are worth more than the sum of their parts. He was finally home. Sometimes the greatest success means walking away from everything you thought you wanted to embrace everything you actually need. 6 months later, Caleb Holt wasn't featured in Forbes for another billion-dollar acquisition. He wasn't photographed at exclusive galas or quoted in business magazines about market disruption. Instead, he sat cross-legged on the living room floor of a modest 2-bedroom apartment, surrounded by an elaborate city made entirely of colorful building blocks. Legos covered every surface. The coffee table, the couch cushions, Daddy, even balanced precariously on the windows. Leo declared with the patient authority of a 6-year-old architect. The fire station needs to be next to the hospital so they can help people faster. You're absolutely right, Caleb said, carefully moving the red brick structure. What about the school? Where should that go? By the park. Kids need to play after learning. Caleb smiled, adjusting the green baseplate that served as their park. Very wise urban planning. The morning light streamed through windows that overlooked not a city skyline, but a courtyard where children played and neighbors chatted over coffee. The sound of real life, Messier louder and infinitely more valuable than the sterile silence of corporate boardrooms. Coffee's ready, Isla called from the kitchen. Caleb looked up to find her watching them, wearing one of his old dress shirts over leggings, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked tired. Leo had been up late with a mild fever, but content in a way that made Caleb's chest tight with gratitude. Coming, he said, but Leo grabbed his arm. 5 more minutes? Please? We haven't finished the zoo yet. The zoo can wait, Isla said, but her tone was gentle. Breakfast first. But Mom? But nothing. Food then playtime. That's the rule. Leo sighed dramatically but began gathering his scattered blocks. Will you help me finish after breakfast, Daddy? Of course. We'll build the best zoo in the world. With dinosaurs? Especially with dinosaurs. The kitchen was small but warm, filled with the scent of pancakes and fresh coffee. Caleb's laptop sat closed on the counter, a deliberate choice. He'd started a small consulting firm, working with companies that wanted to prioritize employee well-being and work-life balance. The irony wasn't lost on him. Sleep better last night? He asked Isla, kissing her temple as she flipped pancakes. Much. His fever broke around midnight. Why didn't you wake me? Because you had that early call with the Portland client, and one of us being exhausted is better than both of us. Isla. It's okay, she said, turning to face him. That's what partnerships look like. We take turns carrying the load. Partnership. The word would have terrified him once. Now it felt like the foundation of everything good in his life. Besides, she continued with a smile, you're on sick duty next time. I've paid my dues. Deal. Leo wandered into the kitchen, his hair sticking up in every direction. Daddy, Tyler's dad is teaching us soccer this weekend. Can you come? Wouldn't miss it. Even if work calls? Especially if work calls. Leo grinned and climbed onto his chair. Good. Tyler says his dad is really good at soccer, but I told him my dad is good at everything. That's a lot of pressure, buddy. It's okay. You'll figure it out. You always do. The simple faith in his son's voice made Caleb's throat tighten. Leo had never known him as the cold, driven executive who'd built an empire at the expense of everything else. To Leo he was just Daddy, the man who made dinosaur pancakes and told bedtime stories and showed up to every school event. What are you thinking about? Isla asked, noticing his expression. Just this. All of it. He gestured around the kitchen. A year ago, I was eating alone in restaurants that cost more than most people's rent. Now I'm sitting in a kitchen with cold coffee and Lego pieces stuck to my shirt, and I've never been happier. The coffee's not cold, Leo pointed out helpfully. You're right. It's perfect. After breakfast, while Leo returned to his architectural masterpiece, Caleb found himself standing in the hallway, looking at the photo gallery Isla had created. Pictures of Leo's first steps, his first day of school, Christmas mornings, summer vacations. 5 years of memories that Caleb had missed, but also evidence of the incredible mother Isla had been. Regrets? She asked, joining him. About missing those years? Every day. But not about the choice to be here now. Good. Because there's something I need to tell you. Her tone made him turn. What is it? I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air like a gift wrapped in starlight. Are you sure? Took the test this morning. I wanted to wait until Leo was at school to tell you. Caleb's hands shook as he reached for her. How do you feel about it? Terrified. Excited. Happy. Worried about how Leo will handle it. Worried about money, about space, about everything. She smiled through tears. But mostly just grateful. That this time I won't have to do it alone. Never, he said, pulling her close. Never alone. Not ever again. Daddy? Mom? Come see. I finished the zoo. They walked back to the living room, where Leo had indeed created an impressive zoological masterpiece. Animals roamed through carefully constructed habitats, visitors moved along designated paths, and a small Lego family stood at the entrance, ready to begin their adventure. It's incredible, Caleb said, meaning it. Tell me about it. Well, this is where the lions live, and this is the penguin house, and over here is the dinosaur exhibit. Even though dinosaurs aren't real anymore, I thought they should have a place too. That's very thoughtful. And this, Leo said, pointing to the Lego family, is us. See. There's you and Mom and me, and we're going to see all the animals together. Caleb knelt beside his son, This little boy who had changed everything simply by existing. That sounds perfect. Can we go to the real zoo tomorrow? If you want. I do. And maybe we can learn more about penguins and you can tell me more facts and Mom can bring sandwiches. Deal. As Leo returned to his blocks, adding finishing touches to his creation, Caleb felt the profound weight of contentment. Not the sharp satisfaction of a closed deal or the adrenaline of competition, but something deeper, more lasting. He'd learned that success wasn't about building empires or accumulating wealth. It was about building blocks on a Saturday morning. About showing up for soccer practice and school plays. About choosing love over fear, presence over profit, family over everything else. The millionaire who once thought emotion was inefficient had learned that some things, some people, are worth the slow burn of daily commitment. Worth the sleepless nights and the sacrificed meetings and the choice to be ordinary in all the ways that actually matter. All because a little boy with a birthmark had walked into his life and reminded him what it meant to be chosen. And now, as he watched Leo carefully place a tiny Lego dinosaur in its new home, Caleb knew he'd been chosen again. By this woman who'd given him a second chance. By this son who'd taught him how to be a father. By this new life growing inside Isla, a testament to the family they'd built from broken pieces and second chances. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who believes in the power of love to change everything. Subscribe to Mr. Ashbourne Golden Narratives for more stories that inspire, uplift, and remind us all that it's never too late to choose love over everything else. Remember, the greatest success isn't what you achieve, it's who you become and who you choose to love along the way. Until next time, keep believing in second chances and the magic of choosing family over everything else. The wail of the infant pierced the silence of Mike Thorne's fortress-like mansion, echoing through rooms that had never known a child's cry. The billionaire stood frozen, staring at the bundle on his doorstep, the security alerts still blaring in the background. "Sir, should I call the authorities?" his head of security asked through the intercom. Mike didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the note tucked beside the screaming infant, a single word written in familiar handwriting. "Yours." But before we continue, welcome to Mr. Ashbourne Golden Narratives, where stories come alive and hearts connect. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join our storytelling family. Now, let's get back to the story. The baby's cries grew more insistent. Rain began to fall harder, drops splashing onto the child's blanket. Mike made a decision that would alter the course of his life. He silenced the alarm, dismissed his security team, and brought the child inside. For a man who ran a billion-dollar data analytics empire, Mike Thorne was completely unprepared for this moment. His hands trembled as he awkwardly lifted the carrier, bringing it into his immaculate living room where no child had ever set foot. "What am I supposed to do with you?" he whispered, looking down at the red-faced infant. The baby girl, he determined after a moment of hesitation, couldn't have been more than 3 months old. Her eyes, when they finally opened between cries, were a startling shade of blue-gray. His shade. Mike's phone rang. Madison Chin, his chief of staff for the past 5 years, was calling. "The security system sent me an alert. Is everything okay?" Madison's voice was tense with concern. "I need you here. Now. And bring baby supplies." "Baby supplies?" "Mike, what's happening?" "Someone left a baby at my door. With a note claiming." He couldn't finish the sentence. 40 minutes later, Madison arrived with bags from a 24-hour store. Unlike her boss, she knew exactly what to do, quickly preparing a bottle while Mike paced, still in his rain-soaked clothes. "You need to call the police," Madison said firmly, testing the formula temperature on her wrist. Mike shook his head, showing her the note. "Not yet. I need to know if it's true first." Madison's eyes widened. "You think this child might actually be yours? How is that possible?" "Who?" "Elena," Mike said quietly. "The handwriting. It's hers." "Your missing researcher? The one who disappeared?" Madison looked incredulous. "Mike, that's impossible. You've had the best investigators in the world looking for her." Mike watched as Madison expertly fed the now quiet infant. "I need a DNA test. Tonight." Discreetly. "You know this could be a setup, right? Someone trying to get to you or the company?" The baby's tiny hand wrapped around Mike's finger as he reached toward her. Something shifted in his chest, a feeling he couldn't name. "I know exactly what this could be," he said. "That's why I need that test." Have you ever had a moment where your entire world changed in an instant? Where you had to make a life-altering decision with no time to prepare? Hit that subscribe button if you've ever found yourself facing an unexpected crossroads. Dawn broke over the Seattle skyline as Mike stared at his tablet. The DNA results displayed in undeniable clarity. 99.998% probability of paternity. The child sleeping in the makeshift crib, a drawer lined with blankets, was undeniably his daughter. How is this possible? Madison asked, watching Mike's face carefully. Mike leaned back, memories flooding his mind. 4 years earlier, Nexus Technologies had been contracted by the government to assist in the search for Elena Vora, a cultural anthropologist who had disappeared during research in Eastern Europe. Elena wasn't just brilliant, she was fearless, venturing into isolated communities that existed off the grid. Mike had joined the search team personally, drawn to the case for reasons he couldn't articulate. For 3 intense weeks, he and Elena worked together, following leads through remote villages. Their connection was immediate and unexpected. The night before a breakthrough, they shared a single night together. The next morning, Elena received a phone call that visibly shook her. She told Mike she needed to handle something alone and would return. She never did. It was one night, Mike said quietly. She disappeared the next day. I searched for her for months. Madison placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. And now you have a daughter. The baby stirred, making small noises that already seemed to pull at something deep inside him. I need to keep this quiet, Mike said. No one can know about her until I understand what's happening. Mike, you run a multinational corporation. You can't just disappear to play dad. I'm not playing anything. His voice was firm. If Elena sent her to me, there's a reason. The note said she's mine. It didn't say Elena was coming back. Madison sighed. You'll need legal guardianship papers. A birth certificate. I can make some calls. No. Only you know about this. For now. As if on cue, Mike's phone rang. James Carson, his business partner and CEO of Nexus Technologies' European division, was calling. Mike, where are you? The Japanese investors are waiting. Family emergency. Madison will step in. Pause. Family emergency? You don't have family. Something in James's tone made Mike tense. I'll call you later. He ended the call, looking down at the sleeping infant. His daughter needed a name. Sophia, he decided. It means wisdom. Something they would both need in abundance. 2 weeks passed in a blur of sleepless nights and crash courses in infant care. Mike worked remotely, claiming a personal health issue, while Madison ran interference with the board. The baby, Sophia, was thriving, but Mike was no closer to understanding why Elena had sent her now after 4 years. Until he found it. While changing Sophia's blankets, Mike noticed an unusual stitching pattern along the edge. Too uniform to be a mistake, too deliberate to be decorative. Binary code, he whispered, recognizing Elena's signature method of encryption. Working through the night, he translated the pattern while Sophia slept beside him. Nexus compromised. Trust no one. Mike's blood ran cold. He immediately initiated a secure, isolated server search of Elena's old research files. Files he'd been unable to access after her disappearance. By morning, he'd found fragments of Elena's true work. Her anthropological research was cover for something more complex, documenting a network of people who had disappeared themselves to escape dangerous situations. Witnesses in protection programs, domestic violence survivors, journalists who had exposed the wrong people. Elena had been mapping safe houses and underground routes, information that in the wrong hands could expose hundreds of vulnerable people. Madison arrived as Mike was connecting patterns on a digital board. Someone's been monitoring our security systems, he told her without preamble. There's been an intrusion in the company mainframe every night at exactly 2:17 a.m. for the past 6 months. How did you miss this? Because I used my access codes. But I'm never online at that time. Madison looked at Sophia, then back at Mike. You think someone inside Nexus is involved with Elena's disappearance? I think Elena discovered something dangerous, and whoever's responsible knows she had evidence. They've been watching me, waiting to see if she'd contact me. Nodded. And instead, with a warning, she sent your daughter. His phone rang. James Carson again. Mike, the board is getting restless. Whatever's going on, you need to get back to work. Or at least explain your absence. I told you it's personal. Nothing is personal when you run a company like Nexus. Is this about a woman? The question was too pointed, too knowing. Mike's suspicion deepened. I'll be back next week, he lied. After ending the call, Mike contacted the one person outside Nexus he still trusted, Detective Lara Torres, who had led Elena's missing persons case. I need your help, he told her. It's about Elena Vora. That case has been cold for years, Torres replied. Not anymore. She sent me something. Something important enough that she's still hiding. What did she send? Mike looked at Sophia, sleeping peacefully. Hope. Detective Torres arrived at Mike's home through a service entrance, her expression shifting from professional detachment to surprise when she saw Sophia. Elena's? Mike nodded. And mine. Torres studied the baby, then the evidence Mike had gathered. You believe someone at Nexus is connected to her disappearance? That's a serious accusation. The timing lines up. 3 weeks before Elena vanished, our European division finalized a contract with a data analytics program for several Eastern European governments. The same region where she was researching isolated communities, Torres noted. Exactly. Elena had access to our servers. If she discovered Nexus technology was being used to track people who didn't want to be found, the very people she was trying to protect, Torres finished. Their conversation was interrupted by Sophia's sudden high-pitched cry, different from her normal fussing. Mike rushed to her, finding her unusually warm to the touch. Something's wrong. Torres felt the baby's forehead. She's burning up. She needs a doctor. I can't take her to a hospital. No one can know she exists. She's a baby with a dangerously high fever. This isn't optional. 40 minutes later, Mike sat in a private room at Seattle Children's Hospital, holding Sophia while a doctor examined her. Despite his attempts at anonymity, he knew it was only a matter of time before someone recognized him. Ear infection, the doctor diagnosed. Common but painful. She'll need antibiotics. As they waited for the prescription, Mike noticed a nurse staring, then whispering to another staff member. By the time they left the hospital, he knew their cover was blown. Sure enough, his phone buzzed with an alert from Madison. Check the news. The headline made his stomach drop. Tech billionaire Mike Thorne spotted with mystery baby. Worse, a text arrived from an unknown number. You were told to keep her existence secret. You have 24 hours. Torres read the message over his shoulder. We need a safe house. Now. When they arrived at Torres' secure apartment, Mike received a video call from Madison. Someone's been in your office, she reported. I found this when I went to get your files. She held up a photo of Elena, one taken after her disappearance, showing her very pregnant. There's more, Madison continued. I've been tracing financial transfers from our European division. James Carson has been moving money through shell companies for years, the same period Elena was researching in that region. Mike felt the pieces clicking into place. He knew. He's known all along. Known what? Torres asked. That Nexus technology was being used to hunt people. That Elena discovered it. That she was carrying my child. Mike's phone rang. James Carson's name flashed on the screen. Hello, Mike, James said, his voice unnervingly calm. I believe we need to discuss your daughter. What lengths would you go to protect someone who depends on you completely? Someone who represents both your greatest vulnerability and your greatest strength? Double tap and comment if you're ready to see Mike fight for everything that matters. You made a mistake bringing her to that hospital, James said, his voice metallic through the phone's speaker. We had an agreement with Elena. I never agreed to anything, Mike countered, signaling Torres to trace the call. Not you. Elena. She stayed away, we left her alone. Now she's broken that arrangement. By sending me my daughter? By sending you a message. Don't play naive, Mike. It doesn't suit you. Mike kept him talking. If you know where Elena is. I don't. That's what makes her dangerous. She has information that could compromise operations across multiple countries. Nexus operations. Pause. Not officially, no. Let's call it a side venture. One that's been quite profitable. You've been using my company to track people for what? Governments? Criminal organizations. Information is power, Mike. You built the tools. I simply found additional applications. Torres signaled she had a location. What do you want? Mike asked. The thumb drive Elena stole before she disappeared. The one I assume she told you about when she sent your daughter. Mike's mind raced. There was no thumb drive, at least none that he knew about. You have 12 hours. Bring it to the office. After that, I can't guarantee anyone's safety, including your daughter's. The call ended. He's bluffing, Torres said. He wouldn't risk going after a child. He doesn't have to. He just needs to expose her existence to the people he's working with. Mike ran a hand through his hair. We need to find Elena. Madison called next, her voice tense. Mike, I found something in Elena's old research notes. There's a pattern of coordinates hidden in her reports, locations across Eastern Europe that form a kind of underground railroad. For people escaping dangerous situations, Mike confirmed. Yes, but there's one location that doesn't fit the pattern. It's in a remote area of Washington state. Torres looked up, interested. Where exactly? A cabin near Mount Baker. Registered to a shell corporation that dissolved 3 years ago. Mike felt a surge of hope. She's been hiding in plain sight. Not overseas, here. There's something else, Madison continued. I found evidence that James was funding Elena's research before you even met her. This goes back at least 6 years. The revelation hit Mike like a physical blow. He placed her in my path. Their meeting wasn't coincidental. What do you mean? Torres asked. The government contract to find her when she disappeared. James arranged it. He knew I'd take personal interest in a missing academic. He wanted me looking for her to flush her out of hiding. But why send your daughter to you now? Madison asked. Mike looked at Sophia, sleeping despite the chaos around her. Because she knew I'd protect her at any cost. And because she needed me to finally see the truth. Torres checked her weapon. We need to move. If this cabin exists, it won't stay safe for long. Wait, Mike said, sudden clarity washing over him. The thumb drive James mentioned, I think I know where it is. He gently lifted Sophia, feeling along the lining of her carrier. There, nearly invisible, was a small slit in the fabric. Inside, a tiny thumb drive no bigger than a fingernail. Elena didn't just send me our daughter, Mike said quietly. She sent me everything. James and Sophia fled Seattle in an unmarked police vehicle. The thumb drive was secured in an encrypted cloud server, its contents backing up to multiple locations. If anything happens to me, Mike told Madison via secure line, release everything to the FBI, Interpol, and major news outlets. Be careful, Madison warned. James has called an emergency board meeting. He's telling everyone you've had some kind of breakdown. Let him. It buys us time. The journey to Mount Baker took them through winding mountain roads, each mile increasing Mike's hope of finding Elena, and his fear of what might be waiting. We should be prepared, Torres said, checking her rearview mirror for the 3rd time. If she's been hiding for 4 years, she won't be easy to find even at this location. She'll have escape routes, contingencies, Mike agreed. But she sent Sophia to me for a reason. She wants to be found by me. Torres suddenly accelerated. We've got company. Black SUV 2 miles back. Mike turned to see the vehicle gaining on them. James? Likely his people. Hold on. Torres veered onto a Forest Service road, the unmarked car bouncing violently on the uneven surface. Sophia woke, crying from the sudden movement. We need to split up, Torres decided, pulling behind an abandoned ranger station. Take Sophia through the woods. The cabin should be 3 miles northwest. I'll lead them away. They could be armed. So am I. Go. Mike secured Sophia to his chest with a makeshift carrier and plunged into the dense forest, using skills he'd learned during his years searching remote areas for his birth mother. He moved quickly but carefully, listening for pursuers while trying to keep Sophia calm. The infant seemed to sense the danger, her cries reduced to occasional whimpers. After an hour of difficult terrain, Mike spotted a small cabin nestled against a cliff face, nearly invisible among the trees. Smoke rose faintly from the chimney. Someone was home. Approaching cautiously, Mike noticed sophisticated surveillance equipment disguised as bird houses and garden ornaments. Elena always was brilliant with technology. He stepped deliberately into a clearing, knowing he was being watched. Elena, he called softly. It's Mike. I have our daughter. Silence stretched for long seconds before the cabin door opened a crack. Prove you're alone, came a voice he'd thought about every day for 4 years. I'm not. Sophia's with me. The door opened wider, revealing a woman with dark hair cut short, her face thinner than he remembered but her eyes the same. Intense, intelligent, wary. Elena's gaze moved to the bundle against his chest, emotion breaking through her guarded expression. You named her Sophia, she said, her voice catching. It seemed right. Elena stepped back, allowing him inside. The cabin was sparse but functional, walls covered with maps and photos. Her research continued even in hiding. James's people are coming, Mike warned. Detective Torres is leading them away, but we don't have much time. Elena nodded, already moving to a laptop. I've been monitoring their communications. They found this location 3 days ago. That's why I had to send Sophia to you. I couldn't risk them finding her with me. Why not tell me everything from the beginning? Why disappear for 4 years? Elena's fingers flew across the keyboard, initiating what looked like a deletion protocol. Because I didn't know who to trust. Because James threatened everyone in my network if I exposed him. Because I discovered I was pregnant after I went into hiding, and by then, it was too dangerous to contact you. Mike carefully transferred the now sleeping Sophia to Elena's bed. The thumb drive you hid with her has everything. Financial records, communications, the names of government officials James bribed. Evidence of how Nexus technology was used to locate and, she hesitated, eliminate people who posed threats to certain regimes. Outside, a branch snapped. Elena tensed, reaching for something under her desk. "They're here," she whispered. "Back door," Elena whispered, grabbing a go-bag with practiced efficiency. "There's a tunnel system under the cabin." Mike lifted Sophia, who remained miraculously asleep despite the tension. "Torres should be." The sound of a helicopter overhead cut him off. "Too many of them," Elena muttered, leading them to a bookcase that concealed a narrow passage. "This route leads to a cavern system. 2 miles in there's a junction. Left leads to an exit near the highway. Right goes deeper into the mountain, a dead end to anyone who doesn't know the path." As they descended into darkness, Mike's phone vibrated. "Madison. James has convinced the board you've had a psychotic break," she reported. "They've suspended you pending psychiatric evaluation. He's telling everyone you've kidnapped a child. He's trying to control the narrative," Mike realized. "When this evidence comes out, he wants my credibility already destroyed. I've secured the thumb drive data as you asked, but Mike, there's something else. I found a direct link between James and the initial contract to search for Elena. He specifically requested you lead the search team." Mike glanced at Elena, moving ahead of him with a flashlight. "He wanted me to find her after she disappeared." "No," Madison corrected. "According to these emails, he arranged for you to meet her before she disappeared. He engineered your entire relationship." The tunnel narrowed, forcing them to move single file. Behind them, voices echoed. James's men had found the passage. "Why?" Mike asked. "Why orchestrate our meeting? I don't know yet. But I've scheduled an emergency meeting with 3 board members who still trust you. If you can get back with proof." The call cut off as they moved deeper underground. "Elena," Mike called ahead. "James arranged for us to meet. Did you know?" She paused, turning to face him. In the dim light, her expression was unreadable. "Not at first. I was recruited for legitimate research. When I discovered what they were really using my work for, I went to James with concerns. He suggested I work with you instead, said you were developing ethical guidelines for data use. And then we fell for each other?" "Yes. That wasn't part of anyone's plan." Her eyes softened. "Least of all mine." The voices behind them grew louder. "We need to split up," Elena decided. "You take Sophia to the left tunnel. I'll lead them right." "No. We stay together." "Mike, if they catch all of us." "They won't." He shifted Sophia to one arm and pulled out the satellite phone Torres had given him. "But we're not running anymore." When James and his men emerged into the cavern 10 minutes later, they found Mike standing alone, Sophia and Elena nowhere in sight. "Where are they?" James demanded, flanked by 3 armed men. "Safe," Mike answered calmly. "Along with the evidence Elena collected." James's smile was cold. "Evidence that will never see daylight. Do you know how many governments would be compromised if her allegations came out? How many powerful people would fall? That's the idea." "Always so righteous," James shook his head. "Did Elena tell you why I introduced you to? What I hope to achieve?" "Enlighten me." "Your algorithm was brilliant for finding patterns, except it kept flagging our operations as anomalies. I needed someone with Elena's expertise to help refine it, make our activities invisible to your scrutiny. Having you fall for her was just a convenient distraction. She became a liability. One I've been trying to eliminate for 4 years." Mike nodded slowly. "I thought so. Thank you for confirming that on record." James's expression changed as Mike pulled back his jacket to reveal the wire. From the shadows, Detective Torres emerged with her weapon drawn, followed by 2 FBI agents. "James Carson, you're under arrest for conspiracy, extortion, and solicitation of murder," Torres announced. As James was handcuffed, his face contorted with rage. "This changes nothing. You think people will believe a data nerd and a woman who's been in hiding for years? I have connections you can't imagine." "Actually," said Elena, stepping into view with Sophia and Madison beside her, "we're counting on those connections. The thumb drive was just a backup. The real evidence was uploaded to your board members 20 minutes ago." On cue, Madison held up her tablet, showing a video conference with Nexus board members and federal prosecutors. "It's over, James," Mike said quietly. "Justice doesn't always come easily, but when it does, it's worth every sacrifice made along the way." Hit subscribe if you believe that truth, no matter how deeply buried, eventually finds its way to the light. 3 months later, Mike stood at the window of his Seattle penthouse, watching the city lights flicker on as dusk fell. Behind him, Elena's voice floated from Sophia's nursery, a lullaby in Romanian, her mother's native language. The aftermath of James's arrest had been a storm of federal investigations, international inquiries, and media scrutiny. Nexus Technologies had survived, though changed forever. With James and his conspirators removed, Mike had implemented rigorous ethical oversight for all company operations. More importantly, the people Elena had been protecting were finally safe. The underground network remained operational, but now with legitimate protection and resources. "Is she asleep?" Mike asked as Elena joined him at the window. "Finally. She's stubborn, like her father." Mike smiled, still amazed at how naturally they'd fallen into parenthood together despite everything. "The Justice Department called," he said. James accepted the plea deal. 20 years, no possibility of parole. Elena nodded, relief visible in her expression. "And the people he exposed?" "All relocated with new identities. Your contacts made sure of it." They stood in comfortable silence, the weight of the past 4 years finally lifting. "I've been thinking," Mike said eventually, "about my birth mother, the search that started all of this." Elena took his hand. "Do you want to keep looking?" "I think I found what I was really searching for." He gazed at their intertwined fingers. "Family isn't always what we expect it to be." The elevator chimed, announcing Madison's arrival with Detective Torres, now regular dinner guests. "They've approved the foundation," Madison announced, holding up official documents. "The Sophia project is officially operational." Mike had established a foundation dedicated to reconnecting families separated by violence, trafficking, and political persecution, using Nexus technology for what he'd always intended, bringing people together rather than exposing them. "To new beginnings," Torres said, raising her glass during dinner. "And found family," Elena added, her eyes meeting Mike's across the table. Later that night, as Elena slept beside him and Sophia's gentle breathing came through the monitor, Mike reflected on the strange path that had led him here. A billionaire who had everything except what mattered. A researcher who sacrificed everything to protect strangers. A child who brought them back together. Sometimes the most precious things come to us in the most unexpected ways. His company had been built on predicting patterns, yet the most important development in his life had been the one he never saw coming. The tiny human being who arrived with nothing but a note that said, "Yours." Family isn't defined by blood alone, but by the people who stand beside you when it matters most. Share this story if you believe that sometimes the family we create is as powerful as the one we're born into. And remember, the greatest treasures often arrive in the most unexpected packages. Subscribe to Golden Narratives for more stories that remind us what truly matters in life.